Okay, guys, this is the 7 steps to becoming a profitable and full-time trader. Let's break it down. Let's get into it. Let's dive into it. Okay, so step number 1, like any other career path, any other hobby, any other project that you're getting into, the first and most important part of anything you do in life is learning the basics and the fundamentals. Now, I understand most of you are probably at this point or past this point. So I'm going to quickly go over this. The first thing you want to do is learn the basics and the fundamentals. Now, this is because you need to understand the rules before you can break them. Now, this is so important because when trading Forex, you want to actually learn how to break the rules. This is because you don't want to do the same thing that everyone else is doing. Now, if you're trading the exact same way that a lot of people are trading, you're most likely not going to be profitable. Not everyone can be profitable, and that's the thing. You have to be original, you have to break off, you have to find your own path in Forex. Now, that being said, you can have a structure that may be similar to others, but the key is to form your strategy to make it your own, or have some sort of twist to make it your own, to make it separate. And that is the importance of learning the basics, so that way you can learn how to actually tweak and twist your strategy to make it profitable. Now, learning the basics is super easy, and there's a lot of YouTube videos and a lot of websites out there that will actually teach you the basics. Now, the basics are just going to be things like learning support and resistance, and learning about trend lines, and learning about certain patterns. Now, most of you have already learned a lot of that stuff, so we're going to continue on to step 2. Okay, now step 2 is probably the most important part out of the 7 steps. This is where you're actually going to learn the way the market moves. Step 2 is going to be backtesting, and more backtesting. Now, I'm telling you, this is where I spent most of my time trying to learn Forex. And this is what I would say accumulated to me being profitable, is the hours and the minutes and the seconds of me putting time into backtesting. I will tell you right now, when I was living at home, I have my own place now, but when I was living back with my parents, I would spend hours and hours backtesting in my room. What literally felt like 4 to 8 hours every single day, backtesting, looking at the charts, having my eyes glued. I'll tell you, I would have stacks of paper like this tall with just random notes of things I was finding as I was backtesting. And this is where I was actually able to learn the language of Forex. Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Forex has its own language. And if you can learn to read the language, you can learn to create your own strategy with the words of Forex. So step 2 is the most time consuming and the part that's going to take the longest to actually learn. Step 2, you will be on step 2 for a long time. I'm telling you, you'll probably be on it for at least a year to 2 years. That's how long it took me. Now, if you skip over step 2 and you choose to continue without staying on step 2, this is where a lot of you will actually mess up, because step 2 is the most important part where you're actually going to learn and understand Forex and the chart. Now, if you skip over step 2 and you skip if you skip over step 2, you're gonna suffer and you're gonna have a lot of difficulty in the future. So for those who may feel like they've skipped over step 2, just take a moment, come back to the charts, do a lot more backtesting, spend hours, write down notes, just become a total maniac when it comes to backtesting, and you will learn a lot. So like if you were to compare Forex to any other career, learning the fundamentals, that would be like going to college. And then the internship would be where you're actually doing the backtesting. And most people know when you go to an internship, that's where you're going to be actually in the environment. You're going to be learning. You might not necessarily be getting paid yet or paid a lot, but that's where you're actually gaining the experience by having yourself in that environment. So in the charts, in the backtesting, that's the environment that you want to be in. And that's where you're going to spend a lot of the time learning. Now, step 3 is actually getting the job or developing a strategy. This is where you're actually kicking your foot into the door. This is where you're actually taking your first step into Forex. And that's why I say step 2 is so important, because without proper backtesting and proper experience on the charts, when you're taking your first step, you might fall quite a bit if you haven't had proper training. Step 3, after all that proper training, after all that backtesting and learning the Forex language, then you can actually start to develop a strategy. Now, before any of you start jumping ahead and thinking, you know, okay, this is where I become profitable, this is where I must tell you, you will not be profitable yet. You will not be profitable yet, unfortunately. This is not going to be your success story where you develop the perfect strategy. This strategy that you're going to make is not going to work. I'm going to tell you that right away. It's an important part of the steps. So this first strategy you're going to create, this is going to be your baby. You're going to create this thing that you think is going to get you where you want to be in life, but unfortunately it's not. But the good thing is it's getting you one step closer to that. So this is where you're going to create your strategy. Now that you know the rules, you know the basics, you know the fundamentals, and you've spent a lot of time in the charts backtesting, this is where you can actually start to come up with something that will lead you to profitability. Now, the good thing is this strategy is going to be the structure of what will eventually be a profitable strategy for you. I'm not going to tell you what exact strategy to use. You can use inspiration from other people's strategies that might already exist. You can create the strategy straight out of the charts from your own personal experience, from backtesting, whatever it may be. You're going to create some sort of strategy. After creating the strategy and doing a little bit of backtesting and figuring out if this will work or not, you will find something that will work a little bit more than not, or maybe 50-50, depends what you end up finding. But this is the important part. Now this is where you actually start demo testing your strategy. Now this part is very important as well because you're not exactly trading with real money yet. So this is where you can still test a lot of things without a lot of fear, because fear will lead to you making a lot of mistakes. And when testing your strategy at first, you don't want a lot of mistakes, because if you make a lot of mistakes, then you might not realize the full potential of the strategy you've created. So having a demo account is actually a really important tool. Now, this is where you're going to test your strategy. This part could take months, it could take years, it could take days, but this is where you're actually going to apply a certain set of rules and you're going to test your demo strategy. Now, just as a rule of thumb, a good strategy could average around 5 to 10% profit a month. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking that you have to make millions and billions of dollars your first week trading, but I'm here to tell you, unfortunately, that's not true. Yes, you can have really good weeks where you might make 20-30%, but on average, 5 to 10% is actually a really good goal to have in mind. Now, after you've achieved this goal with demo trading, this is where it's actually time to put in the work with real money. Now, I'm not saying to use a lot of money. I would personally use something like $100. Obviously, if you have the money, you can step it up. But the point here is to use real money to simulate the real fear and the real risk that you're putting into this. Learning to trade with real money, and for you, eventually desensitizing yourself to the money to a point where you can actually lose the fear and you're just strictly trading off of logic, and that's it. That's the goal that you want in mind. Now, this is where you are going to start messing up a lot and making mistakes, which is natural because you are trading with money that you've put the work in and that you've earned hard, whether it's through your 9-to-5 or through your part-time job or whatever it may be. This is your money. This is money that you've earned. So there is going to be fear involved, and that's okay. Every step you take is one step closer to becoming profitable, and having fear and getting rid of that is just part of the process. Now, you might be asking, how do I get into real money trading? Well, this is actually a really important step, and this is what I call step 5.1. Having a really good broker and a broker you can trust is all a part of the process of becoming a profitable trader. Now, you don't want to have any extra fears involved when trading, so having a good broker can help with that. There are two brokers that I would highly suggest. The first one being Hanko Trade. I've been with them the longest so far, and I really love Hanko Trade. I highly suggest them. Now, if you'd like to sign up with Hanko Trade, it's super easy, super fast. My link will be down in the description if you'd like to use them. Now, if you want something a little bit more, if you want something regulated, I would highly suggest signing up with AAAFX. My link will also be down in the description for that. Now, Hanko Trade is unregulated, and if you're fine with trading unregulated, I would go with Hanko Trade. I personally trade with Hanko Trade myself. If you want something more regulated, then I would suggest going with AAAFX. So having a good broker is an important part of the process. Now, moving on to step 6, the last step before the final step. Step 6, this is actually where you're going to start seeing some progress and you're going to start seeing some profitability. And this step is what I call revise, reshape, and reconstruct. This is the stage where you're going to be tweaking and working carefully at your strategy to tweak every little detail of the strategy and add things on, take things out for this strategy to become profitable. Now, this is where you're going to start seeing a little bit more profit as you start to tweak and reconstruct things. This process also takes a while because once you have your strategy, this thing will be like your baby to you, and you will be reconstructing and tweaking and fixing things until it becomes exactly how you want. This strategy can also take a while because as you're testing with demo and with real money and you're slowly working on creating the perfect strategy, that can take an awful long time. This step is also one of the steps that will actually continue to go on for as long as you trade. You will constantly be tweaking because as the market goes on, things change over time. So you will constantly be improving and constantly be tweaking little minor things to keep your strategy profitable. Once you've proven that you can consistently stay profitable, and after tweaking and messing with your strategy and sculpting it into the perfect strategy that fits for you, step 7 will be actually getting funded. I highly suggest getting funded because most of the time, unless you have $100,000 sitting around somewhere, you won't be making a full-time living, especially off of 5 to 10%. If you start to make 10% a month, if you can get funded $50,000 or $100,000, then you can actually start to make a full-time living. Now, the most important part is making sure that you can actually fit and stay true to the rules of most funded platforms. Most funded programs consist of you making either 5 or 10% as a goal, not losing more than 5-10% as well, and having some sort of consistency within your trading. Now, if you can keep that up with your demo account and with your real money account and prove to yourself that you're profitable over time, this is where you can then move on to the last step to actually get funded and become a full-time trader. Once you're a full-time trader, there is one special step that I ended up leaving out, and that is to quit your job, quit whatever you hate doing that you're doing right now, and become a full-time trader and have more freedom, have more free time, and actually enjoy what you do.